I'm Taylor Gant with the GPB series, What You Need to Know Coronavirus. To halt the spread of COVID-19, Governor Brian Kemp ordered schools to remain closed for the remainder of the academic year. That's forced teachers to adjust curriculums in big ways through virtual learning. Dana Farr is an 8th grade teacher at East Hall Middle in Gainesville. She teaches more than 100 students and advises the school's broadcasting club. Dana joins me now from Gainesville. Good morning, Dana.
Good morning.
Also with us is one of her students, Antoine Garner. Good morning to you, Antoine.
Hello, good morning.
All right, Dana, let's start with you. When the pandemic really began to take shape here in Georgia and you learned that you'd have to be teaching remotely, what was your first reaction to that?
My first reaction was I knew in terms of logistics, I was set up and ready to go in terms of those logistics. I have a pretty deep technological background. I know how to set up our learning management system to set the work up. I know how to screencast myself. I know how to, I had all those technological elements in place. It really wasn't the technological elements as much as it was the emotional elements that I was concerned about. The how students were going to get access to food, the emotional connections you make in classrooms that were going to be gone, the student-to-student contact, the games, the band concerts, the broadcast club, just the emotional components were, when my students left the classroom, I was like, bye, I hope to see you soon. And then my heart kind of caught because I thought, what if I don't see them the rest of the school year? I mean, my heart kind of caught then. I thought, no, Dana, you're being ridiculous. But then my heart kind of caught, like, what if this is it? And I knew there was a catch in my heart at that point, and I knew that, and I thought, oh, I'm worried emotionally. It wasn't the technological lesson component; it was the emotional component for me.
Right, and you've been teaching for a couple decades at this point. How did you prepare?
17 years. It's 17 years, not 2 decades.
nearly there. But
yes.
How have you prepared to teach students with different levels of access or who are dealing with different situations at home? How have you dealt with that?
Equity is, it's on my heart too. I have, students that run the gamut. I have gifted and advanced students. I have students that don't speak English. I have students that are, learning how to read more efficiently, and some of them read on like a 1st or 2nd grade level. And so when I'm doing this, I have to kind of mentally break apart what I'm doing and fragment it and think about, how am I going to meet this need? How am I going to meet this need? How am I going to meet this need? Luckily, I do that in my classroom, but flipping the switch and kind of transferring it to home, you have to kind of cut back what you're doing, make it shorter, make it more digestible. And so I've been kind of working to do that as well. And then I have an English language learners teacher who was able to kind of translate everything into Spanish for me so I could send it home in Spanish. And I had our interpreter call our non-speaker. He was showing up on the Zooms, but I don't speak Spanish. And so I just wanted to make sure that he was being taken care of. I just have a heart for him. And it was just so precious to see him on there trying to learn the content and learn the material. So I contacted our translator and got some stuff translated for him to make sure we could get him caught up.
Wow. Okay. And now, Antoine, let's turn to you. Now that most kids in Georgia are in a virtual classroom, what's it been like for you?
I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult than it was because all of my teachers have it very well set up. Like Ms. Farr, for example, they all have the same icon you just click on, and their work is very neat and organized. And they even have work from the past set up. That way, if you didn't see your assignment for that day, you can go back and get re-caught up. And now that we got past spring break, they have We Care Fridays, which is pretty much where they we don't have any new work, and you can get caught up from the weeks before.
Wow. So you're saying to this point, it's been pretty easy for you to stay on top of everything. You don't feel like you're falling behind or anything like that?
Yes. The assignments, they're not very easy, but they are quite challenging. But it's not too much to where you get overwhelmed. It's manageable to do, so you can do it. You can do it.
Okay, that's great. Dana, one thing you've asked your students to do is document life through the pandemic, which obviously is a shared experience that we're all dealing with right now. What have you been hearing from students like Antoine?
So I think what has been really interesting is with I have them do an activity. I just called it You Are CNN 10 because our students in 6th and 7th grade social studies watch CNN 10. They watch Carl Azuz every day. It was so funny when we took our broadcast team on a field trip to the CNN Center. They're like, where's Carl Azuz? Where's Carl Azuz? They were looking for it. And I'm like, what? Who? And then it clicked. Oh, it's CNN 10 because they're obsessed. And so I just kind of took that minor obsession and made it into an assignment where I'm like, no, you are CNN 10. Report the news for me every day. Tell me what's in the news, what's going on in life. And then I included, what's your favorite TikTok? What's your favorite meme of the day? What's something going on that you really enjoy? And so they've been documenting that. What I think is so interesting about the ones I've received is the escalation of the pandemic, and just to see the escalation in their writing of how this has transpired is something that I'm hoping one day, 5-10 years from now, they'll turn around and look at it and be like, oh my gosh, I lived through that. I remember that. That was something I went through and I documented, and it's something I'm hoping that they can share with their kids and their grandkids and talk about and remember, and they'll be able to remember better because they wrote it down. So.
Antoine, what's been the main experience for you? What's your biggest takeaway from just living through this time right now?
My biggest takeaway is kind of like as far as like the escalation. Some of the events happened very quickly, but just yesterday my mom went out to get gas because she still has to go to work, and the gas was 99 cents. And she was totally freaked out because that's nothing like that has ever happened before. And so since I don't really know what happened in the past, I have to go ask people like my grandparents, did this ever happen? Did this ever happen? I had to do research. Like Disneyland. When Disneyland closed, I was like, oh, it's just an amusement park. There's no big deal. But it's only closed like 3 or 4 other times throughout history. And throughout its opening to now. And I just think it's insane that it closed for this so early.
Yeah, it really is interesting. And speaking of that, Antoine, you're actually part of a broadcasting club in East Hall Middle, and you're helping report on the pandemic to the school by Zoom, which we're doing right now. Why do you think it's important to tell your classmates what's going on right now?
Because the students have to stay informed. Like if say when we're passing out the lunches, if students needed those lunches and they didn't know they were coming, we have to tell them that way they can stay informed, they can receive those lunches. Or if we're changing them by the schedule, say when we change to weekend Fridays, we have to report things like that. That way students know and keep up with their assignments.
Has a moment like this kind of shown you the importance of having a voice in journalism or media?
Yes, because you have to speak your voice and speak what you're seeing. That way everyone around you knows what you're seeing. But if you just stay silent, no one's going to really know what's going on with you. Because we're all isolated right now, so we can't really talk to each other. So things like Zoom and things like social media really help you get your voice out there and tell people what's going on.
Okay. Now, we'll end on a question for each of you. First of all, Dana, for the many other teachers out there in Georgia and across the country, what is your biggest piece of advice to them right now?
My biggest piece of advice would be that we are living in a time that none of us have really ever experienced before. Even my grandparents who lived through the Great Depression and World War II, they never experienced anything like a pandemic like this before. To just be there, be kind, show grace, exude kindness, be the one that's going to be there for them, because at the 10-15 years from now, they're not going to remember the content as much as they're going to remember, did someone care about me? And so I think that that's what, as educators, we have to keep in mind, that we're so content driven, and I am so content driven. I understand how important it is to get across the content because I believe in my content and I believe it's important. But at the same time, I'm a human, and these children are human, and they're facing layers of human circumstances. And I just want to show them grace and let them know that I'm here and that I love them.
Okay. Now, Antoine, there's just as many teenagers out there who are having their lives kind of interrupted right now. What's your biggest advice to your peer group?
Just stay strong, just keep going, because like Ms. Farr said, there is someone out there for you. There are your teachers, your parents, your friends. Reach out to anybody that does care about you, because there are people like that. Just keep on keeping on, get your work done. Go outside, because it's very important for you to go outside, drink a lot of water, eat healthy, and we'll get through this.
Okay. You just heard that advice from Antoine Gardner. He is a student at East Hall Middle. You also heard from his teacher, Dana Farr, who is an 8th grade teacher there as well. Thanks to both of you for taking the time to join us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
And for more educational resources during this pandemic, you can visit us at gpb.org/virus.